The emergency beacon lit up Ben Carter's datapad just as he finished stitching up a small furry creature that looked like a cross between a rabbit and a squid. The owner, a blue-skinned merchant, paid quickly and hurried out with her pet cradled in her arms. Ben wiped his hands and checked the message. His eyes widened. Station Meridian Security was requesting immediate veterinary assistance at Cargo Bay 7. The word urgent flashed in red letters. Ben grabbed his medical kit and jogged through the winding corridors of the station. He had been working here for 2 years now, ever since he left Earth to see what the wider galaxy had to offer. Most days he treated upset stomachs and minor injuries on alien pets. This felt different. When he arrived at the cargo bay, a crowd had gathered outside the main doors. Station security had set up barriers. Ben pushed through and showed his credentials to the guard at the entrance. "You the human vet?" the guard asked. He was a tall insectoid species with compound eyes that reflected the harsh overhead lights. "That's me. What's the situation?" The guard's mandibles clicked nervously. "Frostmaw, injured during transport. 3 doctors already refused to go near it." Ben felt his stomach tighten. He knew about frostmaws from the galactic database. Apex predators from a frozen moon called Valtheros. 12 feet tall, crystalline fur that could cut through metal. Jaws strong enough to crush starship hull plating. Extremely territorial and aggressive when threatened. Why did the other doctors refuse? Ben asked. "Too dangerous. Can't sedate it properly. The dosage calculations for their species are unknown. Too little and it stays violent. Too much and its heart stops. They want to put it down. Put it down." Ben repeated. "You mean kill it? Euthanize, yes. The creature is suffering and poses a threat to station safety." Ben squared his shoulders. "Let me see it first." The guard hesitated, then opened the door. The cargo bay was huge and dim. Emergency lights cast long shadows across stacked containers. In the center of the space, surrounded by armed security personnel with weapons raised, was the Frostmaw. Ben had seen pictures, but nothing prepared him for the reality. The creature was magnificent and terrifying. Its fur looked like it was made of ice crystals, each hair catching and reflecting light in prismatic patterns. Its body was built like a wolf, but much more massive, with powerful shoulders and legs thick as tree trunks. Blood matted the fur along its right side where a deep gash ran from shoulder to hip. The wound looked like it came from something sharp, probably a piece of broken cargo container. The Frostmaw's lips were pulled back, showing teeth the size of daggers. Its eyes, a deep amber color, darted around the room, tracking every movement. Low growls rumbled from its chest. The sound made Ben's bones vibrate. "Everyone lower your weapons," Ben said quietly. "Are you insane?" one of the security officers hissed. "That thing will attack the moment we give it an opening." "Look at it," Ben said, not taking his eyes off the creature. "Really look. What do you see?" "A predator ready to kill," another guard replied. "No, I see an animal in pain, surrounded by strangers in a place it doesn't understand. Its ears are pinned back. That's fear, not aggression. Its breathing is too fast. That's panic. And look where it keeps glancing." Ben pointed to the far corner of the bay. A small cargo crate sat there, barely visible in the shadows. As they watched, a tiny sound came from inside the crate. A whimper. "There's something in that crate," Ben said. "Scan it." One of the guards ran a scanner over the crate, and his face changed color. "It's another Frostmaw. Juvenile. Also injured." Everything clicked into place for Ben. She's a mother. She's protecting her pup. That's why she won't let anyone near. That's why she seems aggressive. She's scared for her baby. "That doesn't change the danger level," the security chief said. He was a stocky reptilian species with scales that shifted from green to brown. "We still can't treat her without sedation, and sedation will likely kill her." Ben set down his medical kit and slowly, very slowly, began walking toward the small crate. The Frostmaw's growls grew louder. She shifted her massive body, trying to keep herself between Ben and the crate despite her injury. Blood dripped onto the metal floor. "Dr. Carter, stop!" the security chief commanded. Ben ignored him. He kept his movements slow and his body language relaxed. He had done this before, back on Earth with wolves and bears and big cats. Predators understood body language better than any words. He kept his eyes slightly averted, not making direct eye contact, which the creature would see as a challenge. He angled his body sideways, making himself seem smaller and less threatening. "Easy, girl," he said softly. "I'm here to help. I know you're scared. I know you hurt, but I can make it better. I just need you to trust me." The Frostmaw's ears twitched. Her growling continued, but there was uncertainty in it now. Ben reached the crate and knelt down slowly. Inside was a Frostmaw pup, maybe 3 feet long, with the same crystalline fur as its mother. It had a gash on its front leg and was shivering. Ben looked back at the mother. She was watching him with those amber eyes, her whole body tense. "I'm going to help your baby first," Ben said, keeping his voice calm and steady. "Then I'll help you. I promise." He opened his medical kit. Ben opened the crate carefully, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. The pup inside whimpered again and tried to back away, but there was nowhere to go in the small space. Its crystalline fur was matted with blood around a deep cut on its front left leg. The wound looked clean, probably from the same sharp metal that had injured the mother. Behind him, Ben could hear the mother Frostmaw shifting her weight. Her claws scraped against the metal floor with sounds like knives on stone. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run, to get away from a predator that could tear him apart in seconds. But Ben had learned long ago to listen to his brain instead of his fear. "It's okay, little one," he whispered to the pup. "This is going to sting, but then it'll feel better." He pulled out antiseptic and gauze from his kit. The pup's eyes were wide with fear, the same amber color as its mother's. Ben reached in slowly and placed one hand gently on the pup's side, just behind its shoulder. The fur felt strange under his palm, cold and sharp like touching frost on a window, but it didn't cut him. The pup trembled under his touch. "That's it. Just breathe. I've got you." Ben cleaned the wound with antiseptic. The pup yelped and tried to pull away, and immediately the mother roared. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. Ben felt it in his chest, in his teeth, in his bones. The security guards shouted and raised their weapons again. "Don't shoot," Ben said firmly, not looking away from his work. "She's just reacting to her pup's cry. Wouldn't you?" He continued cleaning the wound, talking constantly in that same low, calm voice. "I know, buddy. I know it hurts, but we need to get this clean or it'll get infected. Your mom wants you healthy and strong. She's very brave, you know. She's hurt worse than you, but she's still trying to protect you. You should be proud of her." The pup seemed to relax slightly at the sound of his voice. Ben had noticed this with animals before. They didn't understand words, but they understood tone. They understood when someone was trying to help versus trying to hurt. It was something humans had learned over thousands of years of working with animals, a skill so basic they barely thought about it anymore, that he applied medical adhesive to close the wound. It was better than stitches for a young animal that would probably try to lick or scratch at traditional sutures. The adhesive would dissolve on its own as the wound healed. Ben wrapped the leg in a light bandage, then sat back. "There, all done." The pup looked at its bandaged leg, then up at Ben. It made a small chirping sound, almost like a question. Ben smiled and carefully reached out to scratch behind its ear. The pup leaned into the touch. Behind him, the mother Frostmaw had gone completely silent. Ben turned slowly to look at her. She was staring at him with an intensity that made his mouth go dry. Her injured side was still bleeding, the gash even worse than he had initially thought. She must be in incredible pain. Ben gently lifted the pup out of the crate. It was heavier than it looked, probably 60 or 70 pounds of muscle and crystalline fur. He carried it toward the mother, walking slowly and keeping his body relaxed. "Look," he said softly, "your pup is okay. I fixed the hurt. Now let me fix yours." The mother's nose twitched as she smelled the pup. Her ears, which had been pinned flat against her head, lifted slightly. Ben set the pup down about 6 feet away from her. The little one limped toward its mother on 3 legs, keeping weight off the bandaged limb. The mother lowered her massive head and sniffed the pup all over, paying special attention to the bandaged leg. Her tongue, rough and gray, licked the pup's face. The little one nuzzled against her, making soft sounds of contentment. Then the mother looked at Ben again. Her amber eyes studied him for a long moment. Ben stood still and let her decide. This was the crucial moment. Either she would see him as a threat and attack, or she would understand that he had helped her baby. The Frost Mom made a decision. She lowered herself slowly to the ground, her legs folding beneath her enormous body. She shifted her position until her injured side was facing Ben. Then she released a sound Ben had never heard before, a low rumbling that seemed to come from deep in her chest. It wasn't a growl. It was something else. One of the security guards gasped. The translator just identified that sound. It's a Frostmoth submission signal. She's giving him permission to approach. Ben felt his heart hammering in his chest, but he forced himself to stay calm. He picked up his medical kit and walked toward the mother. Each step felt like it took forever. When he reached her side, he knelt down next to the wound. Up close, it was even worse. The gash was at least 8 inches long and deep enough that he could see muscle tissue. She was losing blood steadily. Without treatment, she would die within hours. "Okay, girl," Ben said quietly, pulling out supplies. "This is going to hurt. I won't lie to you, but I need you to trust me like your pup trusted me. Can you do that?" The Frostmaw's eyes watched him, and Ben could swear he saw understanding in them. He opened a bottle of local anesthetic and began to apply it around the edges of the wound. The mother flinched but didn't move away. Her pup curled up against her other side, as if offering comfort. Ben worked steadily, his hands sure despite the danger. Every few seconds he glanced at the mother's face, reading her body language, making sure she was still calm. When she tensed up, he paused and spoke to her until she relaxed again. "You're doing great. Almost done with this part. Then we'll close it up and you'll start feeling better." The security personnel watched from a distance, their weapons still raised, but their expressions changing from fear to amazement. Ben didn't notice them. His entire world had narrowed to this moment. This creature, this trust between predator and healer. The local anesthetic took effect after a few minutes. Ben could tell because the mother Frostmaw's breathing slowed and her muscles relaxed slightly. She was still in pain, he knew, but at least the sharp edge of it was dulled. He threaded a curved needle with medical-grade synthetic fiber, something strong enough to hold the wound closed, but flexible enough to move with her body. "Okay, this is the hard part," Ben said quietly. "I need to close this wound. You're going to feel pressure and pulling, but it shouldn't hurt as much as before. If it's too much, just let me know and I'll stop." He wondered if he was crazy, talking to an alien predator like it could understand him. But then the mother made that rumbling sound again, softer this time, and he knew somehow that she was listening. Ben began to stitch. His hands moved with practiced precision, each suture placed exactly where it needed to be. He had done this thousands of times before on hundreds of different animals. Dogs, cats, horses, even a few exotic animals at the zoo where he had worked before coming to space. The principle was the same regardless of the species. Close the wound, prevent infection, give the body time to heal. The mother flinched when the needle first pierced her skin, but she didn't pull away. Her pup made worried sounds and licked her face. Ben kept talking as he worked, a constant stream of reassurance. "You're incredibly brave, you know that? Most animals will be fighting me right now, but you understand I'm helping. That takes intelligence. That takes trust." He worked his way along the wound, pulling the edges together carefully. The crystalline fur made it tricky because he had to avoid the sharp edges, but he managed. Blood flow slowed as he closed the gash bit by bit. After each stitch, he checked the mother's face, watching for signs of too much pain or growing aggression. "Your people must be worried about you," Ben continued. "The folks from Valtheros, I mean. I read about Frostmaws in the galactic database. You're sacred to them, right? Guardians of the frozen places. Hunters that keep the balance." The mother's ear twitched at the word Valtheros. Ben noticed. "Yeah, I thought so. You understand more than people think. Animals always do. Back on Earth, we had wolves too. Not as big as you, not with fancy crystal fur, but similar. Smart, family-oriented, loyal. People used to fear them, but we learned to live alongside them. Eventually, some wolves even became our friends. We call them dogs. He tied off another suture and moved to the next section. He was about halfway done now. His back ached from kneeling, and his hands were starting to cramp, but he didn't stop. The mother needed him to finish. Behind him, he heard new voices. Ben glanced over his shoulder and saw that more people had gathered outside the cargo bay. Word must have spread about the human vet treating a frostmaw with his bare hands. He could see various alien species pressed against the observation windows, watching with a mixture of fear and fascination. "Looks like we have an audience," Ben said to the mother. "Don't worry about them. Just focus on me. We're almost done." The pup had fallen asleep against its mother's side, exhausted from stress and pain. Its small chest rose and fell with steady breaths. The mother kept glancing at it, making sure it was safe. Ben worked for another 20 minutes, his concentration absolute. Each stitch had to be perfect. Too loose and the wound wouldn't close properly. Too tight and it would restrict movement or cut off blood flow. He had learned this skill over years of practice, countless hours of training and real-world experience. It was muscle memory now, his hands knowing what to do almost before his brain did. Finally, he tied off the last suture and sat back. The wound was closed, a neat line of stitches running along the mother's side. Blood had stopped flowing. Ben cleaned the area one more time and applied antibacterial gel. "There," he said, his voice rough with fatigue. "All done. You need to rest now and let it heal. No running, no fighting, no rough play with your pup for at least 2 weeks." "Okay." The mother turned her massive head to look at the wound. Her nose twitched as she sniffed at the stitches. Then she looked at Ben, and he would have sworn she was grateful. "You're welcome," he said, smiling that he started to stand, but the mother moved suddenly. Ben's heart jumped, adrenaline flooding his system. But she wasn't attacking. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his chest, gently, carefully. Her breath frosted the air around them. Ben stood completely still, barely breathing, as the massive predator held contact for 3 long seconds. Then she pulled back and settled down next to her pup, curling her body around the little one protectively. Ben let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His legs felt weak. The security chief approached cautiously. "That was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever seen," the chief said. "Probably both. She just needed someone to help her," Ben replied. "Same as any scared animal. The other doctors, the ones who refused, they're going to hear about this. A human succeeded where they failed." Ben shrugged as he packed up his medical kit. They weren't wrong to be cautious. Frostmaws are dangerous, but danger doesn't mean you give up on a life. It just means you have to be smart about how you help. "What happens now?" the security chief asked. "Now she heals. I'll need to check on her daily, change the bandages, make sure infection doesn't set in. And we need to contact whoever was transporting her. They'll want to know she's alive. The transport crew already knows. They're the ones who called for help in the first place. They're from Valthros themselves." As if summoned by the words, a group of aliens entered the cargo bay. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and white hair. They moved with grace despite their obvious anxiety. When they saw the mother frostmaw alive and resting with her pup, they stopped in their tracks. One of them, an elderly female with intricate markings on her face, approached Ben slowly. She placed both hands over her heart in what he recognized as a gesture of deep respect. "You saved her," the elder said, her voice thick with emotion. "You saved the daughter of our clan's matriarch. We are forever in your debt, human." Ben felt embarrassed by the formality. "I just did my job." "No," the elder said firmly. "You did what others would not. You showed courage and compassion. These are qualities we value above all others in our culture." She gestured to the mother frostmaw. "She will remember you for the rest of her life." Frostmaws never forget those who show them kindness in their darkest moments. News of what happened in Cargo Bay 7 spread through Station Meridian faster than a signal pulse. By the next morning, every species on the station knew about the human vet who had treated a frostmaw without sedation, without heavy restraints, without automated systems. Just his hands, his skills, and his calm voice. Ben arrived at his clinic to find a line of people waiting outside. Not the usual pet owners with minor complaints, but desperate beings with creatures that other veterinarians had turned away. The first was a merchant from a methane-breathing species. They had to communicate through a translation device while the merchant stayed in an environmental suit. Their companion was a serpent drake, a creature from a high-gravity world that looked like a snake crossed with a Komodo dragon. It was 10 feet long, with venomous spines running down its back and scales that could deflect plasma bolts. 3 vets refused to see her. The merchant explained, their voice crackling through the suit's speakers. They say she's too dangerous, too aggressive. But she's sick. She won't eat, won't move much. I think she's dying. Ben examined the serpent drake carefully. The creature hissed at him, showing fangs that dripped with venom. But Ben saw past the display. He noticed the way she held her body, the dullness in her eyes, the slight tremor in her muscles. She's not aggressive, Ben said. She's in pain. Look at her throat. See how it's swollen? The merchant leaned closer. I never noticed that. She has an infected gland, probably from something she ate that scratched her on the way down. It's making it painful to swallow, which is why she won't eat. And the infection is spreading, which is why she seems weak. Ben treated the serpent drake with antibiotics designed for reptilian species and drained the infected gland. The creature tried to bite him twice, but he avoided her strikes by reading her body language, seeing the attacks coming before she made them. By the end of the treatment, the swelling had already started to go down. The merchant was amazed. How did you know what was wrong? Experience, Ben said simply. An observation. Animals tell you what's wrong if you know how to listen. Word spread further. The next day, a family brought in a telepathic hunting cat from a jungle world. The cat broadcast its emotions to everyone nearby, and when it was frightened or in pain, it projected that fear and pain into the minds of those around it. 3 doctors had tried to treat it for a broken leg, but the psychic feedback had been too intense. They had all collapsed, overwhelmed by the cat's distress. Ben knew he would feel it too, but he prepared himself mentally. When the cat's fear hit him, it felt like ice water in his veins, like his own worst nightmares coming to life. His hand shook and sweat broke out on his forehead. But he had felt fear before. He had worked with animals that could kill him, had put himself in danger to help creatures that didn't understand he was trying to help them. He pushed through the psychic assault and set the broken leg, speaking calmly to the cat the whole time. I know you're scared. I know it hurts, but this will help. Trust me, just a little longer. The cat's projections slowly shifted from fear to confusion, then to something like gratitude. By the time Ben finished, the psychic pressure had faded to a gentle warmth. More cases came. A colony creature made of thousands of insects that acted as one mind. It had a parasitic infection that was killing off individual insects, weakening the whole. Other doctors refused to treat it because working with so many small bodies at once was too complex. Ben created a medicated mist that the insects could walk through, coating each one with antiparasitic medication. Simple, effective, and it worked at a crystalline life form that grew like a plant but thought like an animal. It had cracked from extreme temperature changes during transport. Other vets didn't know how to treat something that was neither fully animal nor fully mineral. Ben used techniques from geology and biology, carefully applying a special resin that would harden and support the cracks while the creature's natural healing processes took over. Each success brought more patience. Ben worked 16-hour days, treating creatures that ranged from the size of his thumb to the size of a transport shuttle. He never turned anyone away. If a creature needed help, he helped, no matter how dangerous or strange it seemed. One evening, 3 weeks after treating the frost maw, Ben sat in his clinic reviewing case files. His assistant, a young alien with 4 arms who had begged to learn from him, was cleaning the examination room. Dr. Carter, the assistant said, "May I ask you a question?" "Of course. How are you able to treat creatures that terrify trained medical professionals? What technique do you use?" Ben thought about it for a moment. It's not really a technique. It's more of an understanding. Every creature, no matter how dangerous it seems, is still just an animal. It feels pain, feels fear, wants to survive. If you can remember that if you can see past the teeth and claws and venom to the living being underneath, then you can help. But where did you learn this understanding? Earth, Ben said. My home planet. We call it a death world because it's harsh compared to most planets in the galaxy. Extreme temperatures, natural disasters, predators that evolved alongside us. Humans had to learn to read animal behavior because our survival depended on it. We learned to tell the difference between an animal that wants to kill us and an animal that's just scared. We learned that sometimes the most dangerous creatures can become friends if you show them respect and kindness. The assistant was quiet for a moment. So, this is a human skill? Something your species developed naturally? I suppose so, Ben admitted, though we don't think of it as special. Back home, almost every human learns basic animal behavior. Children grow up knowing that scared dogs bite, that you should never run from a predator, that patience and calm voices help frightened animals relax. It's just common knowledge. Common knowledge, the assistant repeated slowly. What is common to humans is extraordinary to the rest of us. Ben shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. I'm just doing what any vet would do. No, the assistant said firmly. You're doing what only a human vet can do. That night, as Ben finally headed to his quarters for some sleep, he passed by the station's public gardens. Someone had set up a habitat there for the mother frost maw and her pup while they healed. Ben stopped to check on them. The mother was lying in the specialized cold environment, her pup playing nearby. When she saw Ben, her ears perked up and she made that rumbling sound of greeting. The pup bounded over to the transparent barrier, its leg fully healed now, and pressed its nose against the barrier. Ben smiled and placed his hand against the barrier where the pup's nose was. Hey there, buddy. Feeling better? The mother stood and walked over as well. She touched her forehead to the barrier at the same spot where Ben's hand rested, the same gesture she had made when he finished treating her. Through the barrier, Ben could feel the cold radiating from her. 6 months after the incident with the frost maw, Ben received an official communication from the Galactic Veterinary Council. They were hosting their annual symposium on Station Unity, one of the largest space stations in known space, and they wanted him to be a keynote speaker. The message was formal and respectful, but Ben could read the real question between the lines. They wanted to know his secret. He almost declined. Public speaking had never been his strength, and the idea of standing in front of thousands of the galaxy's top veterinary professionals made his stomach turn. But his assistant convinced him to go. You have knowledge that could help so many creatures, she said. Don't you want to share it? So Ben found himself on a shuttle heading to Station Unity, his presentation notes sitting in his data pad. He had tried to write something formal and scientific, but it felt wrong. Finally, he deleted it all and decided to just speak from the heart. The symposium hall was massive, easily holding 5,000 attendees. Species from every corner of the galaxy filled the seats. Some breathed oxygen like Ben. Others sat in environmental bubbles filled with methane or ammonia or stranger atmospheres. The diversity was stunning. When Ben walked onto the stage, the room fell silent. He could feel thousands of eyes on him, could see the mixture of curiosity and skepticism on alien faces. A human, barely 30 years old, going to teach the galaxy's most experienced veterinarian something new. He stood at the podium and took a breath. Thank you for inviting me, he began. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have some revolutionary technique or advanced technology to share. What I have is something much simpler and much older. He pulled up an image on the screen behind him. It showed Earth, his blue and green home world, with its vast oceans and scattered continents. This is where I come from. Earth. Most of you know it as a death world, a planet with extreme conditions that shaped a species of unusual persistence and adaptability. Murmurs ran through the crowd. Death World had a reputation in the galaxy, and not always a positive one. Earth is home to millions of species, Ben continued, many of them predators. We have wolves that hunt in packs, big cats that can kill prey 3 times their size, bears that can crush bones with their jaws, snakes with venom that stops hearts in seconds. Humans evolved alongside these creatures. We competed with them for food and territory. They hunted us, and we hunted them. He showed images of various Earth predators. The audience leaned forward, fascinated and disturbed in equal measure. But something interesting happened over thousands of years. Humans learned to read these predators. We learned their body language, their sounds, their behavior patterns. We had to, because our survival depended on it. A human who could tell the difference between a wolf that was hunting and a wolf that was just passing through was more likely to survive and have children. A human who understood that a bear standing on its hind legs wasn't always attacking, but sometimes just trying to see better, lived longer than one who panicked and ran. Ben clicked to the next image, showing a human child petting a dog. Eventually, some of those deadly predators became our companions. Wolves became dogs. Wild cats became house cats. We domesticated horses, cattle, chickens. We learned that with patience and understanding, even dangerous animals could become friends. He paused and looked out at the audience. Every human child grows up learning basic animal behavior. We teach them that scared animals bite, that you should move slowly around nervous creatures, that calm voices and gentle movements help animals relax. We teach them to read body language, to notice when an animal is frightened versus aggressive, hurt versus angry. This is an advanced science. It's basic survival knowledge that we pass down through generations. A doctor in the front row, a being with 6 eyes and crystalline skin, raised a hand. But how does this translate to alien species? Earth animals and creatures from other worlds are completely different. Are they though? Ben asked. I've treated hundreds of species in the past 6 months. Different biology, sure. Different evolutionary paths, absolutely. But the fundamentals are the same. Pain causes stress. Fear causes defensive behavior. Comfort and safety allow healing. These aren't human concepts or Earth concepts. They're universal truths for any creature with a nervous system. He showed a video of himself treating the serpent drake. The audience watched as the creature hissed and struck at him, and how he calmly avoided the attacks while continuing to work. This serpent drake was aggressive because she was in pain. The other doctors saw a dangerous predator. I saw a sick animal that needed help. That shift in perspective made all the difference. Another image appeared, this time of the telepathic hunting cat. This cat projected fear and pain into the minds of anyone nearby. 3 doctors collapsed from the psychic feedback. But I treated her successfully because I understood that her fear was just fear, no different from any frightened animal I'd worked with on Earth. The delivery method was unusual, but the emotion was universal. Ben clicked through more cases, explaining his approach to each one. He talked about the importance of patience, of reading subtle signs, of understanding that aggressive behavior usually came from fear or pain rather than true malice. The secret, if you want to call it that, is empathy combined with observation, he said. You have to care enough about the creature to look past the danger and see the individual. You have to pay attention to small details that tell you what the animal is feeling. And you have to trust that if you show respect and kindness, most creatures will respond in kind. A doctor near the back stood up. She was from a species that looked like floating jellyfish, her translator converting her chemical signals into words. But Dr. Carter, this approach requires the doctor to put themselves in danger. How do you justify the risk? Ben smooth. That's a fair question. And you're right, there's risk. But I would argue that we became doctors because we care about saving lives. Sometimes that means taking calculated risks. I'm not saying anyone should be reckless or ignore safety protocols. I'm saying that fear shouldn't be the reason we give up on a patient. He showed the final image, the one he had been saving. It was the mother frostmaw pressing her forehead against his chest after he finished treating her. The audience gasped at the sight of such an intimate moment between predator and healer. The symposium ended with thunderous applause that lasted for several minutes. Doctors from across the galaxy lined up to speak with Ben, to ask questions, to share their own difficult cases. Some were skeptical, insisting that his methods were too dangerous or wouldn't work with their particular species. Others were inspired, eager to try new approaches. Ben spent 3 days at Station Unity, consulting on cases and demonstrating techniques. He showed doctors how to read body language in species they had never considered studying from a behavioral perspective. He taught them to listen not just with instruments, but with attention and patience. Some learned quickly. Others struggled to overcome years of clinical distance and protocol that on his last day, Ben received a message from the Valthrosian elder he had met when treating the Frostmaw. She wanted to see him before he left. They met in one of the station's environmental gardens, a section cooled to sub-zero temperatures for ice world species. The elder was accompanied by 2 other Valthrosians and, to Ben's surprise, the mother Frostmaw and her pup. The pup had grown significantly, now nearly 5 feet tall, though still gangly with youth. When the pup saw Ben, it made excited chirping sounds and bounded toward him. Ben laughed and knelt down, letting the young Frostmaw nuzzle against him. The pup's crystalline fur was cold against his skin, but no longer sharp. She had learned to control it, a sign of maturity in her species. The mother approached more sedately, her movements graceful and powerful. The scar from her injury was barely visible now under her shimmering fur. She touched her forehead to Ben's shoulder in greeting, a gesture of deep affection. "They wanted to see you before returning home," the elder explained. "We're taking them back to Valthros tomorrow. The mother has been cleared to return to her clan." "I'm glad she healed well," Ben said, scratching behind the mother's ear. She rumbled with contentment. "More than healed," the elder said. "She has bonded with you." Frostmaws choose bonds rarely, and only with those they trust completely. "You will always be packed to her." Ben felt honored and a bit overwhelmed. "I just helped her when she needed it." "Exactly," the elder said. "And that is why she chose you. Not because you are powerful or important, but because you showed kindness when others showed fear." She paused, then continued. "There's something else. The Council of Clans has discussed your actions at length. We would like to offer you an honor." "That's not necessary," Ben started to say, but the elder held up a hand. "Please, let me finish. We would like to name you Friend of the Frost, a title given to only 7 beings in our entire history. It grants you safe passage through all Valthrosian territory and the protection of our people wherever you travel. More than that, it acknowledges what you did as worthy of remembrance." Ben didn't know what to say. He looked at the mother Frostmaw, who watched him with those intelligent amber eyes, and at her pup who was now trying to climb onto his lap despite being far too large for it. "I accept," he said quietly. "Thank you." The elder smiled, an expression that looked strange on her angular features but was warm nonetheless. "Thank you, Dr. Carter, for seeing past fear to compassion, for teaching the galaxy that deadly and dangerous are not the same as evil or beyond help." After the Valthrosians left, Ben returned to his shuttle for the journey back to Station Meridian. He found a package waiting for him in his cabin, a gift from the symposium organizers. Inside was a data pad containing messages from doctors across the galaxy. Hundreds of them, sharing stories of how they had started applying his methods to their own patients. One message in particular caught his attention. It was from the doctor with crystalline skin who had asked about treating alien species. She had successfully treated a patient everyone else had given up on by using patience and observation instead of just sedation and automated systems. The patient, a creature from a magma world with skin like molten rock, had survived because the doctor took time to understand its behavior and respond accordingly. "You were right," the message said. "Empathy is universal. Thank you for reminding us of that." Ben smiled and set the datapad aside. Through the shuttle's viewport, he could see stars stretching into infinity, each one potentially hosting worlds with creatures he had never imagined. The galaxy suddenly seemed full of possibilities. When he returned to Station Meridian, Ben found something waiting outside his clinic. A habitat had been constructed there, much larger than the temporary one in the gardens. Inside, perfectly maintained at freezing temperatures, the mother Frostmaw and her pup were lying together. Ben's assistant rushed out to greet him. "They refused to leave," she explained, gesturing at the Frostmaws. "The Valthrosians tried to take them home, but the mother wouldn't go. She kept coming back here. So the council approved a permanent habitat. They said she has chosen to stay with you." Ben approached the habitat slowly. The mother stood and walked to the barrier, pressing her forehead against it where Ben placed his hand. The pup joined her, mimicking her mother's gesture. "Looks like you've got permanent patience," his assistant said with a smile. Looks like I've got family, Ben corrected gently. Word spread quickly that the Frostmaws had chosen to stay with the human vet. Station security joked that Ben now had the best protection of anyone on the station. No one would cause trouble at a clinic guarded by a full-grown Frostmaw. But Ben knew it was more than that. The mother had chosen him just as he had chosen to help her. It was a bond based on trust and mutual respect, the same kind of bond humans had been forming with animals for thousands of years. Over the following months, Ben's clinic became famous throughout the sector. People traveled from distant systems to seek his help with creatures others had deemed too dangerous or too difficult to treat. He never turned anyone away. Each patient was approached with the same philosophy that had served him from the beginning. See the individual, understand the fear or pain driving the behavior, and respond with patience and compassion. His assistant eventually became a skilled practitioner in her own right, learning to read animal behavior with the same attention Ben used. Other students came to study under him, eager to learn the human approach to veterinary medicine. Ben taught them all the same lessons his own mentors had taught him back on Earth, lessons that had been passed down through countless generations of humans who lived alongside animals. Sometimes, late at night when the station was quiet, Ben would sit outside the Frostmaw habitat and watch the mother and her pup sleep. The pup was nearly full-grown now, a magnificent creature in her own right. They could have gone home to Valthros any time they wanted, but they chose to stay. Ben thought about the path that had brought him here, from a small-town vet clinic on Earth to treating exotic creatures across the galaxy. He thought about all the animals he had helped, all the lives saved because someone was willing to look past fear and see a creature in need. The mother Frostmaw opened one eye and looked at him through the barrier. She made that rumbling sound of contentment, and her pup stirred slightly but didn't wake. Ben smiled. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I'm glad I'm here too." Above them, the station rotated slowly through space, a tiny bubble of life and warmth in the vast cold of the universe. Inside that bubble, a human and a predator from a frozen moon had formed a friendship that transcended species and biology. It was a small thing, perhaps, in the grand scale of the galaxy, but it was everything.